Coming up next.
I was absolutely against God when I was in my 20s. And it took a mentor to say, "Why are you so upset with Jesus?" And I finally said, "Because God loved that son, but he didn't love me."
Hmm.
And he's like, "Dude, you got it all wrong." He's like, "You don't know Jesus." He's like, he's like, "You have always been loved. And Jesus loves you and God loves you and they're one and the same." And he's like, "I think you need to get to look at this deeper." And that's when I got really deep into actually reading the Bible and
Mhm.
actually reading the scriptures. And then we baptized our children, and it had been not done because I didn't know I had this feud, right? I didn't know that I was pushing God away because I felt like I wasn't being protected.
Mhm.
And and then once I did and I healed it, then I said, "Oh, okay, I finally get it."
Mhm.
All the bad moods I had were me trying to do this all on my own, and I
Mhm.
thought it was all up to me. But when I looked back on it from a new lens, I was like, "Oh, God was there the entire time. I was always being loved. I was always being guided. I was always being protected. I just at the time couldn't see that that's what was going on."
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You're here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Gioia, and I am here with Matt O'Neill. And I hope you really have your listening ears on. He wrote a book called Good Move Revolution: Igniting the Power of Consciousness and Happiness. Now, this is about conquering your negative thought patterns. And he lays out some very specifics on how to do that. We were just talking about that beforehand. And I said, Matt, wait. My audience needs to hear that. So, Matt, tell us how how did you come to this work?
Well, Tanya, I'm so excited to be here and happy to be talking with the listener today. I came to this work because I had a lot of negative emotions as a human being, just with a family line that kind of had some issues. And I had a dad who was crazy, like legitimately crazy, and then left our family, which was a blessing. At the time, it didn't seem like a blessing. And then was being raised by a single mom who was a secretary, and there was four of us, and her total income for five people was 20,000, and my dad wasn't paying child support because he was crazy. And it was just a scary time. And I was 5 years old, and I'm five.
Mm.
So first I've got this dad that doesn't, that's abusive. And you're like, wow, like, I guess I deserve this. And then he
Mm.
leaves and you're like, I don't even deserve the abuse. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
abandoned. And now, and then you want the guy back who really you don't need back. And then a lot of thought patterns were created by myself as a young child because of those experiences. Like, one, I deserve to be punished and abused. Two, I don't deserve a dad. I don't deserve people to look after me. I had all these negative decisions that I made as a child that then, as I grew into an adult, they were still there, kind of running things in the background. And then when people would get close to me and love me, I would push them away because I didn't deserve that, right? I would do things that would create problems in relationships. And after the pain became enough, and I struggled with my own addictions, I was guided to getting better. And that was just a tremendous amount of work with psychiatrists and psychologists and coaches and mentors, and study and study and study. And eventually, after like 15 years of like intense work on myself, I started a podcast where I interviewed all the world's biggest experts on how to be a happy human being. And 3 years later, the book was released with those findings. And that's how I got into it.
Woohoo! Now there's a God story that dovetails in here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Share that
was
with
I was absolutely against God when I was in my 20s. And it took a mentor to say, "Why are you so upset with Jesus?" And I finally said, "Because God loved that son, but he didn't love me."
Mm.
And he's like, "Dude, you got it all wrong." He's like, "You don't know Jesus." He's like, he's like, "You have always been loved. And Jesus loves you and God loves you, and they're one and the same." And he's like, "I think you need to get to look at this deeper." And that's when I got really deep into actually reading the Bible and
Mm-hmm.
actually reading the scriptures. And then we baptized our children, and it had been not done because I didn't know I had this feud, right? I didn't know that I was pushing God away because I felt like I wasn't being protected.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I did and I healed it, then I said, "Oh, okay, I finally get it."
Mm-hmm.
All the bad moods I had were me trying to do this all on my own, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was all up to me. But when I looked back on it from a new lens, I was like, "Oh, God was there the entire time. I was always being loved. I was always being guided. I was always being protected. I just at the time couldn't see that that's what was going on." And that's, in my book, I talk about, I was just saying it before we got on the show, the foundation of all good moods is humility to God. Until that point, we still think it's up to us, and we will suffer.
let's back up. I can see a lot of our audience resonating with you of where is God? I'm not being protected. I've done what I should. You were 5. It wasn't your fault. What did you do to heal that wounded person who said God can't possibly love me if he's not able to protect me?
I have an exercise in my book where I help people discover that God is always there. And we're going to do it now. So if
Okay.
if you're listening, you can follow along. Think of three of the worst things that have ever happened to you and
Okay.
write them down on a piece of paper. The exact experience. And so for me, I've given one. All right.
Mm-hmm.
My dad left the family and I was abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's the story and that's the thing. And that was a real live thing that happened. And
Mm-hmm.
um and then the next thing after you write the three things that were the worst things to happen, we then answer three questions. And the first is, how did I grow from this?
Mm.
And the second is, what did I learn from this? And the third is, how did I become an even greater version of myself because I had this experience? When you look at every tough experience that you didn't want to go through and you see it looking backwards like this, you start to realize that nothing was actually against you, that God wasn't against you in that experience, that God was helping you become a version of yourself that you couldn't have been otherwise. I wouldn't be a happiness coach. I wouldn't have written the book I've written. I wouldn't have helped the people that I've helped if I had the dad that I wanted. Was it hard? Heck yeah, it was hard. Did I have to go through a lot of pain and struggle? You bet I had to go through a lot of pain and struggle. Did I become a version of myself that I'm super proud of, that I wouldn't take back? Yep. And every person that I've talked with that is open to the truth will do this exercise and realize that even though they don't want to experience that experience again, they understand that they have become somebody that they wouldn't have otherwise, and they don't want to take back that lesson.
How do you walk through this? And maybe you did shake your fist at God while you're doing this, but how do you walk through this and not come out going, God's just mean and pushes me
Never,
through things?
never. Okay, so have you seen all the episodes of The Chosen?
Uh, no. And I'll tell you why. The first scene in The Chosen has a huge rape scene with a Roman soldier.
Mm.
And I went, I can't do this. And so I shut it down.
Yeah, it's a wonderful show. And yeah, and it's tough, but the most powerful scene in all the seasons is there's a through line where Peter is loses a baby and he's so angry because he's watched Jesus heal all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And he is saying to Jesus, finally, this is when Jesus is walking on the water towards the boat, towards them in this giant storm. And Peter finally says how angry he is at Jesus. And he says, how could you heal all those people? And I've given my life to you, and you didn't heal my baby. And I'm like, I'm waiting for this answer. What is Jesus going to say to him? Like, why didn't he heal this baby? Right. And he said, I needed to help you become stronger.
That doesn't feel very Does that feel satisfying to you?
It made a lot of sense.
I can see it making sense. It doesn't feel very satisfying in the flesh.
Hmm.
How did you not come back and say, God, I don't want to be any stronger. I'm good. Can you heal the baby, please?
Mm. Yeah, well, that's the thing is um, that we don't get everything that we want, right? We just don't. And the things that we don't want typically help us become far better versions of ourselves. So in this case, didn't walk Peter's path, but I walked my own, and I've had my own disappointments that didn't go the way I wanted them to go. And I see a lot of things. So my struggle with addiction, allows me to have compassion for someone who's struggling with addiction. Did I do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stupid things during that time? Yeah. I'm ashamed of some of the things I did, of course. But like what I also wouldn't give up that dark time because I'm not like helping people from a place where I'm better than or above than, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Peter's time where, it's a fictional version of Peter, but him losing this baby and I don't, it's just a fictional piece of it, but the answer was so profound. His compassion for somebody else who's lost a loved one is through the roof. His ability to
Mm-hmm.
help somebody who's had loss is now so much greater. And then what happens when you have loss? You love life so much more. And you start to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to hold on to the people I love more. And I'm going to be a better human being than I ever was because I recognize how precious all of it is. So every single negative experience is a gift if we see what it was. And I know this is so to somebody, so there's my book talks about 16 different levels of emotional being. And if we're stuck in one of the 8 lower levels, these are all negative emotional levels. It's like you put on a pair of glasses. So if I'm putting on my sadness glasses, which is one of the levels, everything I see is distorted by that. And I say distorted because it's a distortion from the truth. The truth is love. The truth is joy. The truth is peace, like ultimately. So if God is the truth and the truth is love and God loves us and that is absolutely the truth, those are the love glasses. It's a very high level. Those are God's eyes. Those are Jesus's eyes. A lot of times when I'm praying and I'm not seeing things correctly, I'm like, Jesus, give me your eyes. Let me see this person through your eyes. I want to see this through love's eyes. We can look at every situation either through guilt and shame or sadness or fear or anger or pride or love or acceptance or understanding or compassion or peace. If we look at this situation of losing a baby through love's eyes, we say, okay, there has to be a reason for this. What would love give us this reason for? And he said it. He said to help you become stronger.
You talked earlier about humility. How does humility is sometimes in our culture at least a word that's hard to understand. Humiliation, we kind of understand that, but humility and meekness, we don't necessarily understand.
Yeah.
When you're saying God is doing this for you and you come humbly, how are you pairing that? How are you defining those things?
So the highest level of the negative emotions is pride. And in the Bible, it says, those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So in pride, we're exalting ourselves, and in our own pride, we would say, I know better. I should have what I want. I should have the dad that I want. And if I don't, that's a problem, right? That's
And
pride.
God becomes the problem, right?
Yeah, right. And he was with me. Like, why did you punish me with the dad that I have? Why didn't you give me a dad that I wanted? Right? That's a prideful and and, look, it's totally normal. It's totally normal to have that prideful point of view, but it's not a happy point of view. And we will always suffer when when pride is going to be the pinnacle of our being. Humbleness, though, would say it's not up to me. In fact, my kids continuing to live, that's not up to me. Every day my kids get to continue to live is a gift. My kids were gifted to me. My wife is gifted to me. My health is gifted to me. None of it is owed to me. That's humbleness. And then we move into gratitude, which is another one of the positive moods. And we say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for today. Thank you that I have legs, that I have eyes, that I have ears, that I can hold these children. They may not be here forever, but while they're here, I am just so grateful that you are gifting me this experience.
Can we switch out? So, what happens often when somebody's caring for somebody with addiction is control. Could we pair pride and control? Because that's what I hear you saying is, I want it the way I want it, and I'm going to try and control it to the point that I can. Is
It's
that a
not
fair exchange?
absolutely. Yeah. But we can't control anyone. That's not up to us. God can't even, God could control anyone. He chooses not to.
That's often where folks who are caring for people with addiction get is hypervigilance. If I have dinner on time, if I make sure that the kids are quiet, if all of this is happening, if I maintain this control in an out of control situation, then we will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
How it sounds like one of the highest levels that you're getting to is trusting that God is who he says he is and his
Mm-hmm.
character is solid.
Yeah, his character is love. So why are we having this particular experience when the person that we love is struggling with addiction and is causing turmoil for our whole family? I mean, the truth is that that person chose it.
Possibly, as you know, when Jesus heals the blind man, they come to him and they say, "Who sent him or his parents?" And he said, "Neither. It was for the glory of God." So it is also for them. Isn't that an interesting thought process? The addiction is also for them and what they are learning and what they're
Oh,
walking through.
totally. I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, it is definitely for them. So this after humility, I was talking about this before we started. The next emotion that's positive, and it's the next step. Each of these emotions is a stage. The lowest stage is shame.
Mm.
And usually that's where addiction comes from. Trying to fill a void that I'm not enough and I'm not lovable,
Mm-hmm.
which can't be filled with anything other than God. And then the next stage beyond the first positive emotion of humility is responsibility. And responsibility says, I am responsible for everything in my life. So we may try to have dinner on time and keep the kids quiet and make sure that that's going to, and then when that doesn't work, we're saying, okay, well, I'm still responsible for these children. I'm still responsible for my happiness. I'm still responsible for my life. So if this isn't the way that I want my life to be, as much as I love this person, I have to do what I have to do and hold the line of responsibility. And so there's consequences in this. Some of these consequences are going to be tough consequences, but I've got to protect my kids and myself and my sanity and create the best life that I can. And that God gives us consequences too.
Mm.
So enabling is not the way. Like consequences are, and then this person is either going to respond to consequences or not. But we have to take responsibility for making the best life that we can.
What I'm getting from you is this book that you've written is not about positive thinking. It's not about saying things are fine when they're not.
Right.
How would you separate that out?
No, that's toxic positivity. It doesn't work. You can't ignore negative emotions. That's why the first half of the book is about the 8 primary negative emotions. And when they're in us, we have to know them, know when they're showing up. Like I still experience all 8 negative emotions. All of us will. They don't go
Mm-hmm.
away, but we can recognize them, know what the con is. It's a distortion of reality. See
Mm-hmm.
through, I call them the lies, but they're a distortion of reality. See through the lie and then choose the truth. And as we do this, we move further and further and further up the spectrum of moods and we get into the next emotion, which is confidence. True confidence, though, comes from our character. The most confident human that ever lived was Jesus. You could say anything you wanted to say to him, and it was fine. You could
Mm-hmm.
even you could even stake him to a cross, and it was fine. Like he was unshakable. It didn't matter what they said, what they did to him. He still knew he was an amazing human being because he just was. So we get to have that same type of, I wouldn't say that level, but we get to have the higher, unshakable level of confidence when we say, these are my values and I'm going to stick to them.
Mm.
So we define who we are and what we stand for, and then we live by those values. And the extent that we live to our highest level of character, the higher our confidence rises. And that is a very happy moment when people could say whatever they say. Like, and a lot of times when we're dealing with somebody that is dealing with addiction, I mean, at least my dad was abusive in a lot of different ways and would say awful things. But someone could say awful things, but we know who we are inside, and we
Mm,
don't have whatever they say doesn't matter. Or we're worried about the perception of the neighbors or the friends. Like,
mhm.
oh, you're a failure now. It doesn't matter what they say when we know, okay, well, one of my values is I'm kind. When I live that according to that value, I don't care what other people think about me because my self-esteem comes from me.
How does this play out? Can you give us an example? You gave us the kindness example, but can you give us an example, maybe a conglomerate of clients you've worked with or things like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when my youngest daughter was 5, she was painfully shy. Like wouldn't we were at the ice cream shop and she got the wrong ice cream. She got chocolate chip mint and
Mm.
she really just wanted like strawberry or something. And everyone's eating their ice cream and she isn't touching it. I'm like, Kelly, what's wrong? Are you not hungry? Or are you not feeling well? And she said, no, she gave me the wrong ice cream. And I was like, oh, okay, well just go go ask her for the right ice cream. And she's like, oh, I could never.
No.
And one of the values that I wanted to instill in her was being brave. Okay. In that moment, she didn't have it.
Mm.
And I ended up going up with her and getting the ice cream that she wanted because I wasn't going to see her suffer. I tried to get her to be brave. So I put a picture of a kitten taking a sip of water out of a pool of water. And in the pool of water was a giant lion.
Mm.
And she was a small little kitten. And I wanted her to know inside of her was this brave lion. And every night when we were going to bed and we were saying our prayers, I was speaking with her about being brave and about that's who she was. And I said, every time you feel the fear of talking to new people, those butterflies in your stomach are God telling you what you're supposed to do. So that fear, the butterflies you feel, God is telling you you're about to have the most amazing experience if you just act with bravery for 1 second. That we talked about this every night for 3 months. Summer ended and it was the first day of school. And I knew going into first grade, the first day of school was going to be a moment that she was going to move into her shy
Yes.
shell. And going into that day, I said, you're going to feel butterflies. What do you do? And she said, I'm going to go talk to those people. And she came home that afternoon and she said, I met 3 people on the playground. And she was ecstatic, like ecstatic.
Yes.
I'm telling you, having this core value of bravery instilled in this little girl has changed the trajectory of her life. Last night, I just watched her being hoisted up by different girls as the centerpiece of this cheer program and all these friends. And none of this might have ever happened if she hadn't had a core value to stick to.
Good job, Dad. And
Thank
it
you.
it sounds like you did something really easy that she could understand and put it in a visual, 80% of people are visual, put it in a visual form that she could grab hold of and say, okay.
So in anyone can do this. Whatever you are, and it's in, the whole exercise is in that chapter. I'm happy to send it to anybody who wants it. But there's 20 different core values that I list. There's a million you could pick from, but I list 20, and I just say circle the ones that resonate with you, and anyone can take that and then put it on their mirror and look at who their highest version of themselves is, and then just choose to live by those values. It'll change you. It'll change like it did for me. I was not the person of the most ironclad integrity. That wasn't who I was, but I made a decision that integrity would be my first core value. And because it was on the wall, it was on my wall, integrity. We were coming out of the shopping center one day and a can of soup was underneath the cart, 69-cent can of soup. And we're
Yep.
late for something. And
Yep.
I'm like, I cannot take this can of soup. And so I run back inside and just put $1 on the cashier. I said, I don't have time, but I owe you this. Please take it. And I run back out. And I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't decided that one of the 5 values that meant the most to me was being a person of integrity. And it's all these little decisions that can add up.
I get you completely. I have the same thing of, the dropped wallet. Well, we don't just take it. We take it into wherever, if it comes back to us with the cash or whatever in it, great. But we take it into wherever and we deal with all that. When you are thinking about mood, I want to connect this and hopefully, hopefully it's going to make sense. When you are out of integrity, what happens to your mood?
Plummets. When we're out of kindness, our mood plummets. When we're out of bravery, our mood plummets. When we know we should be doing a hard thing and we're not, we can't be actually happy because we're not living the life that we know we should be living. So this each builds on each other. We started with humility, we moved into taking full responsibility. Now we're talking about living according to the character of who our highest self that we want to aspire to be. After this point, we move into the emotion of acceptance because now we've done everything we can do. We're humble. We've taken full responsibility for everything we can control. We're living at the highest level of character, and yet sometimes crappy things still happen.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the only thing left to do is to accept what God's will is. We've done everything we possibly can. And acceptance was the hardest emotion for me to come to. But the more we do, like, I'm not saying don't do everything you can do. We absolutely can do it. We need to do everything we can do. But I can't control if a diagnosis shows up tomorrow for me or my family. I can't.
Mm-hmm. Or a layoff.
Or a layoff.
Or something happens that I always find it interesting when people get mad at the situation. So the plumbing breaks, right? Well, you can spend your energy getting mad at the situation, or you can spend your energy going, okay, the plumbing has broken. What is the next step? Where's the water shut off? And I use that because that often happens with emotions is you can become addicted to rage because it's a short time release for a long time cost. So if you're caring for somebody with addiction, it may feel good to do the rage dance for a little bit, but the cost is tremendous because you're out of integrity.
Yeah. Anger can be really positive. It's the 7th of the 8 negative emotions because it's one of the most positive negative emotions because it can inspire us to make a change. We can just get fed up and decide I have to do something different. But it also can come at a tremendous cost. So I agree with you that rage is typically not the root. It shows up as an effect of a lot of other things.
How have you seen anger empower you to the positive?
When I look at myself, it's the only time it's positive. When I get super angry at somebody else and I point a finger, it will never, ever, ever be helpful. If I get super angry at someone else and then I say, oh, wait a minute, going back to the second positive emotion, responsibility, I'm responsible for everything in my life. If I'm angry about this situation, what can I do? What is my part in this? And what can I do differently right now? And this is where I was saying, sometimes we say, I have done everything I can. At this point, I need to make a change.
And now you've kind of walked into boundaries territory, which boundaries are only things that I can control. I can't, as a grown adult, I can't look at you and say, Matt, you need to be home and in bed by 11 o'clock.
No,
That
not at the bar. Right.
that doesn't work. It's not available to us to do that.
So if you cross this line, this will be the consequence. And I can control that I've set that boundary. And if you cross that boundary, I can control that I execute the consequence. But consequences, I'm just very, very careful with consequences because I won't make a consequence that I won't execute.
And that becomes an issue when a misread of the Bible and how you're supposed to take care of people, or finances and economics are tied up into it, veiled threats, all those types of things come in there. I personally would lump that back into integrity. Where would you put that?
What's that?
In
What
the
was the
sense
question?
of I'm going to make a threat, but I'm not going to follow
Oh,
through,
no, no,
or
no,
I'm going
no.
to
Yeah,
say things that I don't intend to deal with just because I'm angry.
absolutely. Empty threats are definitely counterproductive. This is why I said if I make very few consequences. I'm very, very careful to never have an empty threat in any situation of my life because I know my word and this is honest, this is integrity for sure. Whatever I say, I have to follow through. I'm going to be a person of consistency with my word. So if I it, and but this is also loving myself, right?
Mm.
Having self-respect. If I say this is what I need, and if it doesn't happen, this is what's going to happen, and then that happens, then I'm going to execute the consequence because I love myself enough to honor myself in that situation. And it, yeah, it's tricky. I want to move to the next positive emotion
Please.
because we only have a couple left before we get to the highest states of happiness. And I tell you this, man, none of this stuff is easy. It all takes a ton of work,
Mhm.
and no one's happy 100% of the time. I can tell you because I keep a journal every day. I live my life 29 out of 30 days happy. So
That's phenomenal. For most people, they are not there. What would you say from your research? Less than half the
80,
month?
yeah, it's somewhere between 50 and 80% of the time we're having some type of emotional distress, just depending on the study.
Hmm.
So now, and I've got a big life. I've got I've got four young kids and two companies and just a lot of things going on. I'm involved in helping people live their happiest life, and so it's not due to a lack of stress or a lack of, it's not like I'm sitting on a golf course or sitting on a beach and I'm having this utopia. It's like I'm living in the real world with real issues and real things going on and still finding a way to see the majority of the days being really happy days. But it's all living what I'm talking about. Okay, so once we have done all of this and we're accepting what we can't control as God's will and knowing that it's up for our best, that no matter what the challenge is, it's still going to be for our best in the long run, we move into a state of gratitude. I love pushing as hard as I can on gratitude because the more grateful we are, the less entitled we are. We
Mm.
are crushing that pride piece with gratitude because we're grateful to God. It's not me. I'm grateful for all these blessings. I kind of named them off just a minute ago. So when I wake up, I've got a little piece of paper next to my bed and it says, "Thank you, Father." My left foot hits the ground on that piece of paper and I say thank, and my right foot hits the ground and I say you. And I don't care what stressful TV show I watched, what stressful dream I had, what crankiness I have. If I didn't get enough sleep, my first two words out of my mouth are thank you. And I'm walking through the house with each step saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then when I sit down with my cup of coffee, I say a prayer. And my prayer always starts with gratitude.
Mm.
And then before every meal, before I eat anything, I pray and I say, thank you, God. Thank you for all these different things that are in my life. So these are 5 ways, and there's 5 systems that each day I have 5 different moments I stop and say thank you to God. I don't do this because I don't have better things to do or I'm not busy. I do this because gratitude is the gateway to happiness. The more grateful we are, the happier we are. After gratitude, we move to the emotion of love because we start to just notice that we can be grateful for absolutely everything, the problems included. Like, oh, thank
Mm-hmm.
you for that lesson. Thank you for thank you for that annoying person that they helped me establish some more patience in myself. Like that was great. I needed
Thank you
it.
that I stood in line for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That kept me from being in that accident that was down the road.
Right. I don't know. Right. And we don't know. And that's the
Yeah.
thing is that when I'm annoyed in the moment, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm being protected from something that I don't know I'm being protected from. And we don't know this. Or like there's an accident on the road and we're annoyed that we're late. And yet somebody could be losing their life at this moment. Right. So thank you that you've kept me safe in this car. Like we get so caught up in our own stuff. So from gratitude, if we become grateful for everything, we just start to love everything. And as we love and love and love, we love the hard to love person, we love the easy to love person, we love all the experiences, everything becomes joyful. Love creates joy. And the final emotion is peace. And the only peace there is the peace of God. And this is knowing that I've gone through a lot of struggles in my life and it's always turned out beautiful, and that I will continue to go through struggles in my life. Jesus talks about how like there's no challenge-free life.
Yes.
But with God on my side, I know that it always is going to be okay, no matter what. No matter who I lose and who dies and when I die, it's all going to be beautiful. And that finally can bring us to peace.
As you come into the peace, how protective do you get of your peace?
Um, Super protective. Yeah, I don't, it- because I take full responsibility for everything. I don't allow people into my life that aren't in alignment with my values.
I was in the store the other day, and what I needed, I finally got it through my thick head that they couldn't provide what I needed. So I wasn't willing to give my peace away and try and force the issue. So I said thank you and I left. And that to me, that's a big page turner for me of not trying to force an outcome. And I think when I'm hearing you say you don't allow people into your life that way, I don't allow, or I'm learning to not allow my thoughts to go that way. Because if we
Totally.
don't take all of our thoughts captive, we can be ugly because we're being ugly to ourselves. I see it in other people. I see it in one of my children. He's very ugly to himself.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
how do you keep yourself from being ugly to you? You know you want to treat other people with kindness. Are you worthy of kindness?
Yeah, that's healing the first of the eight emotions. So if we're ugly to ourselves, it's is one of two things. It's the first two emotions. It's the emotion of shame that I'm unlovable or I'm not enough, or it's the emotion of guilt that I have to be perfect. And both of those are lies and distortions. And so I've got exercises that I help people through to overcome those two distortions of I'm not enough, or I have to be perfect or perform perfect. But you do have to heal those two things for sure. But I loved your story, and I want to comment on this because it's perfect. Uh, we get to choose peace all the time or not.
Mm.
We had a mold issue in our office building.
Ew.
I own the office building. We built it in 2020 and it was designed improperly. The engineers that designed it designed the air conditioning system in an improper way.
Mm.
And we dealt with the entire downstairs had mold around every single wall. And so we had to move everybody out, bring in a team. They cut all the drywall out
Yes.
and they treated all the mold because we thought that it was intrusion from water from the windows. So we caulked all the windows. 6 months later, all the mold comes back.
Oh, and if you don't know, this is thousands and thousands of dollars
It
to
was a
do
hundred. It
this.
was 110,000.
Yeah.
And we went to the builders and we went to the engineers and we said, we're not builders and we're not engineers. You all designed this building. And we gave them the opportunity to correct it. We said, we feel like you all should partake and help us. The builder said, I'll fix it at cost. So that was his offer.
Mm-hmm.
And the engineer said, not my problem. You can sue me.
Mm.
So it would have been a decision if to go into a battle,
Mm.
a law battle, and sue this engineer. And then our attorney would have told us to sue the builder too, because just doing it at cost wasn't a great offer, right? It's not like they
Mhm.
were actually chipping in any money. They just weren't upcharging us. And my wife and I chose peace. And we said, my peace is worth more than this fight.
Mm.
And we took on a loan for 110,000 and fixed the building and didn't sue anybody. Now, that's not the decision everyone would make,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll tell you what, I forgave both the builder and the engineer. I had no like true forgiveness. Like I don't like they have their own consequences. They didn't live in integrity. They did a job and didn't live. There will be like God sees every single choice. They're
Yes.
all seen. There's a
Yes.
consequence for every choice, whether it shows up or not. So there's also a consequence for my choice to forgive and to not pursue. There'll be positive consequences that come for me for that choice. But the biggest positive consequence is we didn't get into a battle and we got to just live our life in peace.
Let me ask you one last question. How do you personally stay in line with God? Because if God had said, I mean, God does do battle sometimes. If he had said to sue them,
Mhm.
how do you stay in line so you know which way he would like you to go? So you're not exercising your control over the decision.
Oh, yeah, I don't make a decision without prayer. I just feel so convicted that I know exactly what the answer is when I pray. And people ask me this all the time, like, how do you know? And I'll tell you, I've got a little exercise. And when I'm trying to decide what to do, I pray and I say, God, give me guidance on this. But every single morning I'm praying to say, hey, I want you to be part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Before each meeting, I'm like, hey, I want you to be here with me in this meeting. Like it is such an integral piece of my entire day. But when we're trying to make a big decision, like should we sue or should we not sue? I say, God, give me guidance. And then I hold the future of what it looks like to sue in my mind. And I feel in my heart, how does this feel? And then I hold the future of we take out a loan and we pay for it, which, that's a tough future too. And I feel in my heart, how does this feel? There's a story about fig trees, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have rotten fruit if the tree's not good.
Mm-hmm.
I consider rotten fruit distorted feelings in my heart, and you can feel which choice feels the darkest, and you can feel which choice feels the most loving and the most peaceful. And that is how God talks to me. I can always feel what one feels the most loving and the most peaceful and the most joyful. And that's my answer. I think everyone has that same compass inside of them. And I'll tell you, suing and trying to get 110,000 from someone that, that would be nice, right? But I think it would have been the selfish choice because it didn't feel right.
Well, let me ask you this. When you were still dealing with your own personal addictions, your struggles, could you feel your compass? Or did you have to come out? And we started with humility. We're kind of winding up with humility. Did you have to come out and relinquish that pride, that control to be able to feel that?
It's crazy. I was always, and I think everyone's like this too. God was always there. I just didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was living in Colorado And I would wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night in my bed that I'd lived in for 3 years and not know where I was. This happened maybe 10 times. And on the 10th time, and I'm like terrified. I don't know where I am. I was in my room, but I didn't know
Right.
where I was. Finally, I was like, oh, this might be my soul telling me I'm in the wrong place. And I moved away from Colorado to move away from the drugs and the alcohol. And I didn't want, I knew I needed to change my entire environment because addiction is such a habitual thing. And it's like any little thing can pull you back in. So I wanted to change all those cues. So I, I think even when you're in the throes of it, there's still like lifelines being thrown your way. You just have to be open to accepting them.
The ability to listen. Tell us again the title of your book, where we can find it, and where we can find you. Do you have some other socials, Instagrams, anything like that you're producing?
Yeah, the book is called Good Mood Revolution, and the easiest place to find it is Amazon. And if anyone wants to get in touch, my email address or my web address is the same as my name, mattoneil.com.
Fantastic. Matt, this has been enlightening. This has been really enlightening. And listening to you process this has been it's been very soothing. Let's put it that way on how you've brought all this out. So thank you for being here.
Oh, Tanya, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.